want to know who the cream of the crop are, on Sunday, who's there on July 4th? Way to go, people. Look at you. I'm sure others have a lot of great patriotic reasons not to be here. But man, my family, we just got back from a sabbatical. If you're new here or if you've been here the past couple weeks, you're like, who is this guy? I'm one of the pastors here, and my family and I were able to graciously, because of the church, literally take off for a month. And so it wasn't a vacation, it was a sabbatical. A sabbatical is, the word Sabbath means to stop. And so we got to stop. We got to stop working and focus on listening to God, having fun with family, enjoying one another, and family really was the best part. I almost thought about doing an entire sermon just on all the things I felt like God spoke to us and did in our lives over this past month, but I thought, well, then you'd have to turn that into like a 10-part series, and I figure I'll just trickle it in, as we go over the next couple months. But one thing is we left right as we were starting the mask optional thing here on Sunday. I just want to say, I had this thought this morning. It's so good to see people's teeth. Like, what is it about teeth? I never realized that in my whole life, that like, wow, teeth are so important in like an interaction, especially when people are smiling. Well, let's get into this. We're in the book of Luke, and we are moving through it. I would say pretty slowly, because we want to get as much as we can out of every word and sentence and story in this marvelous book about Jesus. And so I'm going to read to you our passage this morning, and then we will get into it. Luke chapter 12, verse 4 through 7. I tell you, my friends, do not fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more that they can do to you. But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? And not one of them is forgotten before God. Why, even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, you are of more value than many sparrows. Now, this passage here is about fear. If you don't struggle with fear, I would say, check your pulse. Check your pulse. Are you alive? Fear is one of the dominating, debilitating, negative emotions that all of us face daily. We face wrestling and dealing with fear. But who doesn't want to be free? I mean, who in here would say, I love being a fearful person? Fear is one of those things that we don't want it. We don't like it. We want out of it. We want to be a more bold and courageous person. We all generally want to be bigger risk takers and try new things and trust God with more in our life and with our family and friends and everything else. And I will say this, if Jesus is teaching about a subject and he's telling you not to do something, I just want to say there's an opportunity to grow. You can become a less fearful person. You can become a less fearful person. You can become a more courageous and bold and risk-taking type of person. And do you want that? Is that something that you desire? Do you want it? Biblical fear includes being afraid of someone, but it extends to some other things. Holding someone in awe. Sometimes that's how the Bible talks about fear. When you hold someone in awe. Or being controlled by someone. Or mastered by people. Worshiping other people. We can worship other people. We can take a person and give them too high of a status in our life to where we fear them in the sense that they control us. And that can be anyone. It can be someone you love. It could be a spouse. It could be kids. It could be a coworker or even a friend. It's putting too much trust in a person. It's needing a person too much. I was just at we were part of the sabbatical. Here's a little bit of the trickling in of the sabbatical. we were in Colorado at a pastor's conference, an Acts 29 pastor's conference, and so there were hundreds of other pastors from Texas and kind of the central region of America. And, all of us just went through, almost every single one of them would say, and we got to have a lot of rich conversations about it, the hardest year and a half of ministry that any of us had ever faced. And one of the things that came up is like one of, if not the hardest thing that I kept hearing, that I even said myself, was the loss of friendships. Losing relationships. Whether it was people that had to move or people that left different churches for different various reasons. Man, that was painful to hear people talk about that. But one guy, there's different stories. Like one guy was like, man, a third of my church left over our decision on masks, which I just thought, what are they doing now that no one is wearing masks? It was just interesting that they left, and what are they doing now? Where are they going? Or there was all kinds of mean, cruel infighting over racial issues, or some people talked about people just disappeared. There's a chance to not meet, and so people just kind of faded away, and how that's painful too. One guy, he kind of caught me, and we were talking, and he was being very intentional about speaking into me something that he learned out of the Psalms this year. And what he said is he learned how much he feared people. And part of the reason that he feared people is he said, this verse I kept coming back to was how in the Psalms it says over and over and over, God alone, or only God. Just this word, only and alone. God is our fortress, our deliverer, and our rock. He alone is our rock, fortress, and deliverer. And the thing that he felt like God showed him, and when he said it, I was like, man, I needed to hear that, was that no person is ever described in the Psalms as the thing that alone is your rock, your fortress, and your deliverer. Never is a spouse, never is a friend, never is a child, never is a coworker, never is anyone described as that person alone is your fortress, your rock, and your deliverer. Only God. And if you take anything else and put them in the place of fortress, rock, and deliverer, that person, ultimate person who helps you feel safe or valued or respected or beautiful or whatever, you make an idol out of them and you mess up the relationship. It's God alone, only God. And really, what are you going to make your fortress, rock, and deliverer? The thing you fear the most, the thing that you respect the most. Like when I remember Gandalf and Bilbo, when Bilbo is trying to keep the ring, like Gandalf's figured out that he has it. It's in the book and the movie. And all of a sudden, Gandalf's realizing that it's this thing of great power. And it says that Gandalf appeared to Bilbo as larger and more powerful than he had viewed him before. And at first, Bilbo's terrified, and he's like, ducks back. But then what does he do? He goes toward Gandalf, and he hides in Gandalf. He goes into his cloak, and he holds on to him. That's the kind of image that Jesus is painting here of God, that we're to fear him in a way that we go toward him. And he becomes our fortress, our rock, and our deliverer, not any other person. My first, before I get into the text, my first vivid memory, I was trying to remember, what's my first really vivid memory of having the experience of fearing what people think? Like fearing man. And I remembered being at a church camp when I was a freshman in high school, and they had a sharing time where you could go up front, and I can't remember what it was about, but you could go up front and share something about what God is doing in your life that week or something. And so you're standing in front of 500 other high school kids, and I'm a freshman. And I remember going up. I don't remember what I wanted to say, but I remember going up to the mic, right? Sorry, I'm messing this up. And I remember going up there, and I stand there, and I just go like this. And I went and sat down. I got so scared that I just got blocked. Like I was just so scared. I didn't know what to say, and I went and sat down. Now, the funny thing was, the rest of that week, you know what I was doing all week long? Thinking about, man, does everyone here think I'm a total loser? You know, when most people there probably forgot it 5 minutes later, my whole week, I would walk in a room. What do these people think of me? Do they know that I'm that, like just obsessing over all week long. Fearful and controlled by what other people thought of me. You know, some of us, we can live our whole lives that way. Where everywhere we go, everywhere we walk in, you can kind of have on your own, what do people think of me here? When they look at me, what do they think? And then that kind of controls how we live. I want to go through, here's the top 10 signs of the fear of man. I'm going to try to move through these as fast as I can. One of the ways fear of man shows up is just simple peer pressure. Peer pressure. Obvious when we were kids, still present today, but we simply make decisions and do things based on what will other people think of me, not on what the best thing is for us or our family or our life. Overcommitment, number 2, overcommitted. If you are overcommitted, the root of that is fear of man. Because you're scared to say no to people. You're scared of people. Neediness, number 3, neediness. Do you often need something from others? You need others to help you feel respected or important or loved. If you're being controlled by others, needing them, that's fear of man. Self-esteem. Self-esteem. I would say this is the most popular, most common, easily accepted American version of the fear of man. It's actually proposed as a good thing. It's a totally unbiblical thing. Self-esteem. What is self-esteem? Hey, tell me that I'm good so that I feel good about myself. That's actually bolstering pride. And there's a proverb that says the fear of man is a snare. It's a trap. The fear of man is a trap. It's a snare. Those who trust in the Lord are safe. When you are always kind of dependent on other people to give you words of affirmation to feel good about yourself, you are now living in this trapped, snared existence. The biblical version of self-esteem is what we would call God-esteem. And it's, I need to have my esteem in who God is and what he thinks of me, not in what other people think of me. You will just be, like Paul said once, if I cared or was fearful of what man thinks, I would not be a pastor anymore. I get that now. I get that. No matter what decisions we make, someone is going to hate it. And you have to just make a decision and go. Fake. Number 5, fake. If you feel like you're an imposter, like you're always kind of like switching identities wherever you go, or wearing a different kind of mask in different locations. Fear of man. Always second-guessing decisions, like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Fear of man. Make a decision. It doesn't matter what people think. Go. You can't say no, similar to being overcommitted. Whether it's kids, letting them cry it out, or always letting your kid control you over their fussiness, or if you can't say no to your spouse ever, can't say no to a certain friend, can't say no to a boss, whatever. Fear of man. Jealousy. When you covet what others have, you get that kind of, when we get that burning feeling in our chest, and it's like, oh man, if I only had that, then I would have life. Then I would be worth something. It's actually rooted in the fear of man, fear of what other people have, fear of what other people think if you don't have certain things. If you're often angered by others, if you often use the phrase, man, that makes me crazy, or man, they make me crazy, well, someone has become too much the controlling center of your life. Rooted in, once again, the fear of man. All right, number 10, if none of these have hit you, if you're like, oh, dude, I don't fear anything. All right, just listen to this one. If you've been thinking this whole time, wow, I am such a less fearful person than everybody else. Or you've been thinking the whole time about everybody else that is fearful, more fearful than you are. You are possibly in the most dangerous category of the fear of man, which is what would be the successful fear of man, which says we feel good about ourselves in comparison to others, which is rooted in caring too much about how you appear in the eyes of other people. Here's the deal. Fear is pervasive. It's all over the place. It invades our lives. It's one of our biggest problems. What Jesus is saying here, oh man, it's blunt, it's bold, and I'll be honest, it's clear. In many ways, this is an easy sermon to outline. He is describing, he uses the word fear 3 times. Don't fear man, fear God, and don't fear your worth. Don't be afraid about your value. Don't worry and be afraid about how valuable you are. Isn't that an interesting conclusion there? Don't fear man, fear God, don't be afraid of your value. Everyone is fearing something. You are either afraid of man to some degree or you're afraid of God. It's kind of like trust. Everybody's trusting in something. Everybody's afraid of something. The question is, what are you afraid of? Fear, the way that Jesus is explaining fearing God and fearing man, is think of it like a scale. The more weight that we put into fearing God, the less we fear man. The less weight that we put into fearing God, the more we're going to fear man. It's a scale. He's inviting us into a greater fear. Fear God. That's a much better fear to have. That's what's going to set you free from being controlled by the fear of man. And what's his reasons for not fearing man? Very fascinating reason for not fearing man. Don't fear man because they can only kill your body. Sorry guys, I'm going to move over here a little bit because there's this big gap. Don't fear man because they can only kill your body? This is Jesus, the Lord of the universe. Man, what is he getting at? Jesus, he sees so much better than we do. Jesus sees past death. Jesus sees into eternity. He sees what happens to a person after they die. And he sees us 1,000,000 years from now. He sees us 1,000,000,000 years from now. He sees us trillions of years from now and where we are. And he's saying, hey, those people you fear right now that are kind of controlling you, they can only kill your temporary body that is so small and minuscule on the grand timeline of things. You know who you should fear? You should fear the person who decides where you go for eternity. That's the person we should be afraid of. Fearing man, it's really, what he's saying is, I wish I could just get this and swallow this and have this in my heart more, but man can't really do anything to you. They can and they do. They hurt us, bad things happen, we're all wounded and everything. But in the grand scheme of things, eternity, forever. Don't fear man who can only kill your body. Now, in the context here, Jesus is actually being very relevant that all these disciples are actually going to be killed by people, except for John. The guys he's actually talking to all end up getting killed. Their bodies are murdered because they believe and follow Jesus. So he's preparing them for that. In that moment when they're about to get a sword stabbed through them or be hanged or be beheaded. He's like, hey, in that moment, it's okay. You live forever with me. Don't be afraid of them. When they come asking, hey, do you believe in Jesus? Yes. Because you're with me forever. The part where he says, I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who after he is killed has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. The fear him, it's like a exclamation point. Yes, you should fear him. You should be afraid. Now, when we talk about fearing God, what do we mean? Well, there's kind of 2 sides of the coin. Some pastors, and I'm sure that I've been a victim, I've been guilty of both of these. Sometimes we like to downplay the side of the fear of God that is just the pure and simple, the threat of punishment, which is what Jesus is talking about here. The threat that, yes, Jesus is saying there is a hell. If you're a Christian and you wrestle with, is there really one? This verse is very clear. There is. And God is going to send some people there. Okay? He has authority of who goes there and who doesn't. So one of the sides of the fear of God is like you would fear a parent spanking you or swatting you or whatever you do, or putting you in timeout, or whatever your form of discipline is. Whatever it is, we fear. It's good to be afraid of punishment because we're sinners that are guilty, that deserve punishment. It's grace that we get into heaven, The other side of the fear of God is the other part of this verse. It's the beauty and the awe of his love that, oh man, like if you're in love with someone, part of what you fear is, I don't want to lose this. Why? Because it's so beautiful and wonderful. That's a type of awe fear. Think of going to the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is beautiful. It's amazing. But when you walk up to the edge, it's like, whoa, this is a little scary. But that's part of what makes it beautiful. That's part of the experience. It's like, wow, I am in the presence of greatness. And it's awesome. Or the ocean. The ocean is beautiful, but man, it can be dangerous. It can kill you. God is to be feared. Fear of his punishment, but also in awe of his beauty. And I don't want to lose him. It's the Gandalf thing. It's like, whoa, but I want to be with you. Where else is there to go? This last part is the invitation in verse 6, where he says, are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, and not one of them is forgotten before God? Sparrows were cheap. It was like going to a farmer's market, and whatever you might get there where you weigh it, I'm going to get a bunch of these, maybe potatoes or something, and they're like, oh, here, take a few more. Go ahead, here's 2 more, not a big deal for what you're buying. Sparrows individually were cheap. So Jesus is saying, as cheap as sparrows are, I keep count of all those. I know you, and I know where you are, and I keep count of you. So much so, and then he takes it a step further with the hair thing. This is that famous verse. He knows how many hairs are on your head. Think about the imagery here of the picture that Jesus is painting. Like, what does it take to count the hairs on someone's head? Even my hairs, okay? I have probably the least amount of hairs in here, maybe. Even me. It would take some time. I'd have to sit down. The person would have to come up behind me. They'd have to just begin to count slowly, methodically. It would imply a lot of time spent together. I think about my kids when I look at their hair, and it's like, this would take weeks. Like, I don't know how I would ever organize this. Like, sifting through and trying to count all this beautiful hair. Guys, this is what I want you to get here. Jesus is saying, fear God and don't be afraid of your value. Like, when we question how much God values us, how important we are to him, when we miss that, that's when we fall into the fear of man. Because we start looking for value and worth and significance and respect in all these other places. When the best possible download of worth and value you could ever find is in your relationship with God. It's seeing what he thinks of you and how important you are to him. I saw a C.H. Spurgeon quote this week that said, how important is the soul of man if both the devil and God want it so much? I thought, that's awesome. Satan wants your soul. It's true. He wants you in hell. God wants you so much that verse we read earlier, he did not spare his own son. No, he didn't spare his own son. He gave up his son, his precious and beautiful son, to get you in. He let him die a brutal, horrible death. He allowed him to take hell upon himself to get you out of hell so that you wouldn't have to go there. And that's the beauty of the gospel. Guys, here's how it works. A simple illustration. Imagine you're downtown at a friend's concert. You got a friend who's playing in a concert downtown. And now we're doing that again. Now there's concerts downtown, and there's a bunch of people there. And let's say they play the drums, right? But something happens, and they get hurt, and they can't be there, and the band needs someone to fill in. And so you go up, and you've maybe played around once before in a cousin's garage, or you've done a little beating on the legs and in the room and in the house, and it turns out you kind of get the job done, and you're like, wow, I did it. And then it was a good night. And then imagine if Bono, you two, imagine Bono comes up to you after the concert and says, hey, that was really good. I want you to be in my band. Can you come and play in my band? He chooses you. What would you say? What would you feel? You'd be like, whoa, Bono wants me? He chooses me to be in his band? Are you crazy? You would feel pretty valuable at that point, wouldn't you? Now, catch this. Imagine if right after that happens, one of your other friends comes up and says, man, you are horrible. You stink. You're a loser. What are you doing up there? But you've already been chosen by Bono. What would you say? Forget you. I don't care what you think. I got picked by Bono. I'm in his band. Their opinion of you would not matter. When we are being controlled by people and too fearful of people, we need to remember who has chosen us. God Almighty, who made heaven and earth, who will judge everyone at the end times, who knows every person, who determines where everybody goes when they die. He has chosen you. He has brought you into his family. He calls you son, daughter. He did not spare his own son. Guys, here's the deal. Are you going to walk out of here if you hear everything I say and you totally get it and you totally receive it and you're like, oh, I got it. I get what Jesus is saying here. I just want to warn you, it's going to take time. But let's grow in it. We have to find ways to continually remind ourselves, man, what does God think of me? How valuable am I to him? Because I tell you what, all of us, if we're really thinking about this tonight, before we go to sleep tonight, we're going to get hit with, wow, I'm more afraid of people than I thought I was. Okay, Holy Spirit, I need your help. Help me become less afraid. Help me remember who sends people to hell. Help me remember how much you value me. And rest in that and ask him to help you to sit in that. And guys, we're about to take communion. And guess what? That's what the communion meal is all about. It's all about just savoring and enjoying and worshiping God, that he allowed his son's body to be broken. He allowed his blood to be shed to bring us in to an eternal relationship with him that never ends. There's nothing better than that. We actually believe there is nothing better in the whole world than the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's it. It's the best thing. Jesus and what he's done. And when we take communion, when we take the communion meal, it's remembering it tangibly. So up here we're going to have bread and wine on the left. We've got grape juice, bread, and gluten-free crackers on the right. We've got communion cups in the back. We've got masks and gloves for this. we're all ready. We're ready for you to come take communion, okay? Every possible scenario. I think you can do it. So when you're ready, as the music plays, you guys just